Hello and welcome. I'm Jon Garlick and I'm here with Lieutenant Falon Hurst, and this is Calhoun County's Most Wanted. Falon.
Hello, John.
How are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm pretty good too. You know, you had an exciting week out there with the storms that went through, and I think a lot of your friends probably saw that on Facebook.
Yes.
Dramatic stuff. Glad you're okay.
Thank you.
And of course your deputies were okay. Let's take a look at the count for last week.
We are up 4 now to 5,143 thanks to the viewers.
Fantastic. Now, you're our local historian.
Yes.
And you discovered something fairly recently, and I take a couple seconds to talk about that.
Well, I had help in discovering. We had a person out of Kentucky reach out that was doing some genealogy and had discovered that their grandfather had worked for the sheriff's office in the 60s and had died in a car wreck. I had never heard of this, so we did some digging and found out that it was true and that it's a line of duty death, and we've had him added to the wall in Washington, D.C.
What an honor, and I'm glad the family reached out, and Sheriff's Office lucky to have you to be able to do that research.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, we have other fantastic stuff coming up for you. Got a really impressive guest for you here shortly, so stay with us and watch for the first half of the lineup here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. And welcome to this week's edition of Calhoun County's Most Wanted. The first half of our lineup this week is brought to you by Chris and John's Bail Bonding. Chris and John's Bail Bonding, 256-328-4547. And first up in this half of the lineup is Lisa Smith, otherwise known as Lisa Chappelle. Last known to be living in Anniston. She's wanted for a failure to appear on theft of property 3rd and a probation violation on theft of property 2nd. And take a look at Eric Benavides. Mr. Benavides, last known to be living in Houston, Texas. He's wanted for a failure to appear on theft of property 1st. And this is Aaliyah Verwain. Miss Verwain, last known to be living in Decatur, Georgia. She's wanted for failure to appear on obstruction of justice by using a false ID. And take a look at Carlos Woodgett. Mr. Woodgett, last known to be living in Jacksonville. He's wanted for motion to revoke bond on assault 2nd and failure to appear on a probation revocation. And this is Jimmy Huff. Mr. Huff, last known to be living in Oxford, he's wanted on a failure to appear for distribution of a controlled substance. And take a look at Jairus McKenzie. McKenzie, last known to be living in Jacksonville, wanted for probation revocation on theft of property 3rd. And meet Devin Lee. Mr. Lee, last known to be living in Bessemer. He's wanted for failure to appear on burglary 3rd ×2. And this is Ambrose Patton. Mr. Patton, last known to be living in Anniston. He's wanted for failure to appear on theft of property 2nd. That's it for the first half of the lineup. Stay tuned for the second half later in the show. Welcome back. We hope you saw somebody in that half of the lineup. You might know where they are, and if you do, call Falon Hurst. You call, he hauls. We are here with legendary TV personality Carl Brady.
Thank you, John.
God, it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
I should just turn the show over to you.
Well, you know, it's unusual to be on the guest side instead of the hosting side, but it's been a while.
Well, it's just great to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation
voice,
to be
your personality. But you're not here to talk about TV, are you?
No, we could spend a lot of time reminiscing, you know, over 32 years of radio and TV, but we'll talk about something else.
So you are working with the East Alabama Works, right?
Yeah.
And what's your position now?
Well, I'm the Workforce Program Manager for East Alabama Works, and basically what we do is we work with business and industry on their workforce development needs. We are led by business and industry. We go in, we meet with them, we find out what the problems they're having with workforce. You know, right now nobody can find people who want to work. It's hard to find people who can pass a drug test. You know, those kind of issues that they're having, and training issues. They need people who are trained to a certain level so that they can hire them to produce their product. So we take that information back to the community colleges, to our local school systems, to politicians, whoever will listen, and we get the information out and help set up training programs and try to get the workforce properly trained to go into these high-wage, high-demand jobs.
Well, I spent a couple of years on a task force for law enforcement at the state level. We were coordinating what people needed to do to become law enforcement officers and corrections officers. So all that dovetails into what you guys are doing. And
yeah, every sector of our employment is having the same issues.
Yeah, we
Finding
certainly are.
enough people, and again, the drug problems are a big deal. But we look at transportation, childcare. There are so many barriers for some people who want to get a good job and who would love to have a better job than what they have. But there are some issues there that keep that from happening.
so does East Alabama Works try to overcome those issues, or are you into education and training? What's the...
A little bit of all of it. I like to describe us as we're squirrels in a giant oak tree, and we're just constantly jumping from branch to branch. So we have, we look at all of those things. The benefit cliff, I'm sure you've heard of the benefit cliff. We look at transportation issues. Why are people having issues with transportation and childcare? You know, one of the big problems with childcare is if you're working a third shift job, there are no child care facilities that operate during third shift. Or if they do, you know, the kids have slept all night and you pick the kids up on your way home, you've been working all night, well, you still need somebody to keep them while you can get some sleep. So there's just so many issues out there that are barriers that we try to work through and help find solutions for.
So yeah, I was at the academy in Tuscaloosa yesterday, and one of their cadets going through training was a single parent, is a single parent, and she was under the impression that she was hired for a specific shift, and here she is in the academy and got an email that said, "We're changing your shift."
Yeah.
And she's like, the town I'm working in doesn't even have school buses. I can't.
Yeah, we've dealt with those things. A lot of what we see is generational motivators. The workforce that's entering now is motivated differently than ours and yours. There's different things motivating, so keeping them motivated is a challenge.
Well, for the first time in history, we have 5 different generations working in the workforce at the same time. And they all have different motivators, they all have different work ethic.
They don't understand each other.
And they don't understand each other.
That's right.
So, you know, you're always talking about having a mentor at work, so you put a young person with an older person usually to mentor them at work. Well, we're looking at some ideas of how about putting some of these older people who are set in their ways with a younger worker and let the younger worker mentor them a little bit as well, and let it be a shared mentorship instead of the idea of the experienced worker teaching the younger one. Let's get some back and forth learning between each other there. So because the older generations have a difficult time understanding the younger generations more so than ever.
Yes.
And generations in the workforce are really causing some issues right now too.
They are, and I've noticed that, you know, a lot of kids coming out of high school, they don't quite know what they want to do, and high schools, for the most part, are not preparing kids to go into the workforce. And that's, I guess, where you guys are stepping in too.
Yeah, that's where we communicate with our local high schools, our CTE programs, and we're trying to do away with that stigma that if you're not smart enough to go to college, you have to do CTE.
Right.
We need the smart kids in CTE because we're preparing them for engineering jobs and things like that. You know, it's not just you know, the skilled trades. There are plenty of places that we need people in the skilled trades. They make good money. They eventually, if you have a desire to entrepreneurship, if you look at plumbers and electricians and construction workers and folks like that, after working for somebody else for a short time, they usually will branch out on their own and start their own company. So if you have a desire for entrepreneurship, a skilled trade is a great place for you to be as well. And there's nothing wrong with working with your hands and doing the hard work that needs to be done in our society.
No, we need that. We have spent decades sending that business overseas, and I think we're suffering for it now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And, absolutely need to have training programs in high school. You know, I've always been like this, pushed for the ability to graduate from high school with the necessary apprentice level certification, so you don't necessarily have to go to a 2-year college to get what you need to get a job. You can just graduate from high school with your beautician's license or with your basic EMT. Anniston Fire is doing something like that, aren't they?
Yeah. Anniston Fire has a great training program. Several fire departments around our region are starting high school training programs. We've just recently helped to start a modern manufacturing program in several local high schools, and we have more coming on in the fall or in the spring and then next fall, where you're not necessarily taking a CTE pathway, but as an elective, you can take this modern manufacturing class and you learn the skills that are involved in manufacturing products, and you will earn some certifications in there. You can still take your academic courses, and it's like I said, instead of having the whole CTE pathway, you can just take these elective courses and learn some things that you need to know that will give you an advantage when you graduate from high school. If you would like to go straight into the workforce, you'll have some certifications and some credentials there to do that.
Or even get a part-time job while you're in college that pays better than working at a fast food place, right?
Absolutely.
Well, Carl, we're going to take a break. When we get back, we'll talk more about the East Alabama Works and maybe some TV history, I don't know. But stay with us for the second half of the lineup here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. And welcome to the second half of our lineup this week. This half brought to you by Speedy Bail Bonds. Speedy Bail Bonds, 256-235-9090. First up in this half is Crystal Smith. Miss Smith, last known to be living in Heflin. She's wanted for a failure to appear on obstruction of justice by using a false ID. And meet Camilo Bryant. Mr. Bryant, last known to be living in Oxford. He's wanted for a probation violation on distribution of a controlled substance. And that's it for the second half of the lineup. Stay tuned. If you have any information on these folks, please give Crime Stoppers a call. That number at 1-833-251-7867. And welcome back. Hope you saw somebody in that half of the lineup. You know where they are, and if you do, call the sheriff's office. You call, they haul. We are here with Carl Brady, the famous Carl Brady, and talking about East Alabama Works, and we want to make sure we talk about the Worlds of Work. Worlds of Work, that's right. Worlds of Work is a career expo that we do every year for 8th graders and high school juniors. We were talking about how to motivate our kids that are still in school to a career choice, and you have to kind of start younger than usual. You know, going to college and having an undecided major until you're a junior or a senior is just not very feasible anymore. That's not a great idea. So we want you to start thinking about your career early on so that you can start your pathway. We talk a lot about pathways. So you need to get on your pathway. You can take specific classes in high school that lead you to community college or lead you to a four-year college and then lead you into a career. Because the ultimate goal of education is not just being smart, it's a career. Right. You have to support your family some way. And one of the ways that we try to introduce students in we cover 7 counties. We have a 7-county region, and we have the East Alabama Works Worlds of Work. It's the Career Expo. It's in March of every year, and 2023 is going to be March 7th through the 9th at the Oxford Civic Center. And over 3 days, we have more than 8,000 students who come to the Oxford Civic Center. The school systems support this and feel it's so important. They take care of busing and the cost of busing all of their students in. Every 8th grader in our 7-county region, more than 102 schools, every 8th grader will come through this in March. And about 95% of the high school juniors in the region. So over 3 days, we had, in this past March, we had 8,206 students who came through. We have 2 days of 8th graders, 1 day of juniors. We have over 100 career-presenting companies who have hands-on activities for the kids to do. It's not like going into some seminar type thing where you have to listen and watch a PowerPoint or sit behind a desk and have somebody lecture you and talk to you. There are hands-on career exploration events going on where they get to go in and they get to try a welder. They get to hammer nails in the construction area. They get to use some of the same equipment that some of the manufacturers use. They do simulators. They get to climb around on 18-wheeler trucks. They get to come into the public safety world and participate with you guys in some of the things some of the displays and demonstrations that you guys are doing with our public safety folks.
AlabamaWorks, and we have 10 different worlds that they can explore, and it's a great opportunity for the kids to get a hands-on exposure to a career choice that they may be thinking about, or maybe introduced to something that they may not have been thinking about. You know, some of the most exciting kids, usually Public Works will have a small excavator out there and let them dig a hole or do something with an excavator, and the kid goes home, I got to dig a hole with an excavator today, and they're all excited. Maybe this is something I want to look at for a career. Sure. And so we just give them all these opportunities to come through, spend some time talking to people about the career, doing the hands-on activities, and the community support is amazing. We have Eastman as our main sponsor. They've been with us for a long, long time as our title sponsor. So Eastman is a huge part of Worlds of Work. We have a bunch of other sponsors that are part of it, and 1,200 volunteers.
Wow.
1,200 community volunteers participate in this event. It's incredible.
So you get 8th graders, so it's in March of the 8th grade year, so they're rising 9th graders, so they're about to be freshmen in high school. And then you've got your rising seniors.
Yeah. So they're starting to think about their senior year and graduation. Yep. And then if you stick with the process long enough, those 8th graders come back a second time as juniors, and you get to reinforce something that maybe they learned as 8th graders, or maybe their ideas have changed, or they're more serious about something. So we reinforce the message we give them as an 8th grader when they come through as a junior.
Well, exposure is tremendous for trying to figure out what you want to do. I mean, you know, Falon was a ne'er-do-well in high school.
Yeah, I had plenty of exposure to law enforcement.
but you got exposed.
I did.
And made it a career.
I did.
Yeah.
And so that's, and high school is a great place to kind of experience lots of different things. And you're making that, and it's a big life decision. Am I going to go to college or am I not? And if I'm not, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Right? And if I do go to college, what am I going to major in? And you got to have experiences to understand how to answer
those things. And a huge majority of the kids who do go to college do not go back after their freshman year.
Right.
They drop out after their freshman year, and then they're stuck with, what do I do? I have no experience, I have no training, I have no education now in post-secondary, so what am I going to do now? And they end up working at a fast food restaurant or something like that. So even if your intentions are to go to a 4-year university, it doesn't hurt to take a CTE pathway, or to take something that earns you some kind of work credential that you have to fall back on if you need it.
We spent a lot of time a few decades ago promoting college and showing the earnings tree and how much more money you'd make with a college degree. And I think we hurt ourselves doing that.
We did.
And then we made student loans easy and turned universities into businesses. And now people are, like you said, they go to college, they maybe get a year under their belt, they got a year's worth of debt and nothing. Or they go and they get their 4-year degree, and I think I read a statistic where about 20% of the graduates of college are working in the field that their degree is in. So, I mean, you're going to change, so it's good. So, World of Works, tell us very quickly before we have to break. Again, it's going to be when?
It is March 7th, 8th, and 9th of 2023, and it'll be at the Oxford Civic Center. The city of Oxford and the folks at the Oxford Civic Center are just tremendous to work with us on these projects, and it couldn't be done without the Oxford Civic Center staff and the city workers of Oxford, too, with all the work that they put into it. But it's a great event. You're going to hear your kids talking about it at some point in time. We create a book every year that goes along with it that's got a bunch of career information and things like that in there as well. And each student will get one of these books as they in their classroom before they actually come to the event.
Outstanding. Well, Carr, thank you for being on the show and talking with us about this. And we'll get you back where we can just talk about media.
Okay, we can do that. We can do that. I appreciate you guys having me today.
Thank you very much. And you stay with us. We've got our Crazy Criminal coming up, and the Crime Stoppers portion of our show here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. And welcome to the Crime Stoppers portion of our show, where we ask your help on the following cases. First up, between December 4th and December 5th, a dog was shot on Dogwood Lane in Piedmont. The dog was secured by a rope on the owner's property. And between December 3rd and December 4th, a Jeep Grand Cherokee was broken into on Boiling Springs Road in Oxford. A lockbox containing prescription medication was taken. No other property was removed from the vehicle. And between November 30th and December 1st, an Alcoa 4405 pressure washer was stolen from a wrecked utility trailer on Alabama Highway 9 in Anniston. And sometime between around October 22nd until now, a number of brush fires have been reported. If you see any suspicious activity, don't hesitate to call 911 or the sheriff's office with that information. And beware of the following scam. The Calhoun County Sheriff's Office will not call and inform you that you have a warrant. We have had an unknown suspect calling individuals on November 21st and stated that they were a sergeant at the Calhoun County Sheriff's Office. The individual was then told she had 2 outstanding warrants and was to report to the Sheriff's Office with money. The Sheriff's Office will not do that. If you receive such a phone call, just call the Sheriff's Office and ask them what's going on, but do not send any money. Thank you. And that's it for the Crime Stoppers cases. If you have any information on these cases, please give Crime Stoppers a call. That number 1-833-251-7867.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Falon, it's got to be crazy criminal time.
It's always crazy criminal time.
Well, tell us what you got this week.
Well, we've got Miss Williams here from South Carolina.
Okay.
Miss Williams had sent her husband to the store to get her some beer.
Well, she looks like she would like beer.
For whatever reason, he decided, I bet you'll find out the reason here in a moment.
Okay.
For whatever reason, he came home without beer.
Uh-oh.
She decided that that was not acceptable and stabbed him with nothing other than a ceramic squirrel.
A ceramic squirrel?
Ceramic squirrel.
So like that's kind of like a Rocky Bullwinkle's show collectible, probably.
I guess.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the beer makes her calmer or more violent. Maybe that's why he didn't bring the beer home. But
there's no telling. Oh my goodness. So the obvious question is, did the ceramic squirrel break?
I'm not sure. He did, though.
He did.
She decided to try to lie and say that the blood stains on her hands were already there when the police got there. Of course, they didn't buy that. So
and
she
the stains
she
on
went
the
to
ceramic
jail.
squirrel?
I'm sure it's no longer prominently displayed in their home.
She's just saying.
It's probably in an evidence locker somewhere.
But officer, my ceramic squirrel was bleeding when I picked him up.
I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it.
Did her husband survive the ceramic squirrel attack?
I believe he did.
Okay. So it wasn't a fatal ceramic squirrel attack.
No, just a regular one.
That would be assault first here in Alabama, would it not?
It would, yeah.
Assault first with a ceramic squirrel. That would be a fun trial to attend. Is this the assault weapon?
Maybe get the game warden involved.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we had the World of Works on. If somebody's looking for a job at the sheriff's office, who do they call?
Give me a call. Give anybody a call. 256-236-6600. We can tell you what you got to do, or you can find our application. You can submit it on the website.
Law enforcement's a great career. Corrections is a great career. And if you're interested in that, give the sheriff's office a call. Talk to Falon personally. He'll tell you how he went from, 7th grade bully to law enforcement officer. Well, we thank you for watching this week. We hope to see you again next week, but not in the lineup here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted.